Hello, Kyle Ferroli at the Center for Mind-Brain Balance, and today I'd like to talk to you about the difference between the mind and the brain. You've all heard the saying, it's all in your head, snap out of it, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, get over it, let it be, let it go, let it something, let it rain. All good songs, by the way. And the problem is that they're all based on getting over things in your mind. Now let's back up a minute and talk about the brain first. The brain is the physical organ in our heads that's surrounded by that cerebral spinal fluid that when you bounce off causes concussions. It has different speeds that it oscillates at. Neurons fire to neurons, fire to neuron. Ooh, I know, it's getting boring. I'll stop the brain stuff. You get the idea. It is a physical organ that we can actually look at before we treat. But the blind spot in traditional medicine is they're not looking. It's the only area that they're not looking. Eye doctors look at the eyes. Heart doctors look at the heart. My buddy's an ER doctor. He takes x-rays. He does objective measurements to look at what's wrong before he makes a diagnosis. But whenever it's wrong with the brain, it's bypassed and it's talked about in a sense of the mind. Get over it. Don't worry about it. Have a better mindset. Don't think that way. Now that is true. My background was in psychotherapy. I started off talking to people. But it wasn't until a client took his life that I realized maybe there's more to helping people than just talking to them. When I re-entered the field of healthcare, I went into neuroscience and physiology. And I did my doctorate work in an area called psychophysiology. Very small area, similar to where chiropractics were probably 20, 30 years ago. Whether you like chiropractics or not is not the point, but it's that it was an emerging field. Now you see one on every corner. So coming back to the mind-brain thing, doctors are looking at symptoms based on how you are going about that in their office. You're presiding over your symptoms, right? And the process is to usually hand you a pill or go talk to someone. But did you know that there's a doctor in California, Daniel Amen? He's done over 80 or 90,000 scans, objective measurements like x-rays of the brain using SPECT imaging. And he's found that there's 7 different patterns of anxiety and depression and 7 different patterns of ADD. Now the meds don't work for all of them. How do you know what you're getting unless you look? This video is kind of all over the board because there are so many things going into this idea that the mind is something and the brain is something. And I hope you see that the trend is that we really need to be looking more at the brain and not at the mind. So we've talked about the brain. We know it's a physical organ. We know that it has different ways of connecting and networking. We can measure brainwave activity using equipment. And what sets the brain off? How we perceive the world. We can get our brain to run way too fast, or we can slow our brain down depending on if we're sleeping or we're eating or we're doing something fun or doing something really frightening. Your brain is going to respond a certain way and it's going to send signals to your body, your nervous system, to also change. So I hope you see the difference here in that, yes, it's good to still look at your mind. I completely support the field of therapy and psychotherapy and counseling and life coaching and all that great stuff, having a mentor. I love all that. Personal growth, self-help, great stuff. But if you don't know where you're starting from, how do you know where you're going to go? That's my concern. We look at the brain, the mind, and the body objectively using equipment and that can show you how you're really doing compared to how you think you're doing. And on the mind level, we look at 3 things that are the recipe for disaster. 1 part, negative thoughts, a lot of unrealistic expectations, and a lot more irrational beliefs. And those 3 things kind of give us our colored lens that we view the world in. Things should go a certain way. People should act a certain way. Things should go my way. Things should only do this or not that. Certain people should be in office, certain people shouldn't. Those type of things. And they then shape us into how we think, act, and feel, which sets off our brain, which sets off our body. So the next time you hear the thought of it's all in your head or snap out of it, I'm living proof that you can't always do that. The fact that that was the best advice I ever got as a kid, and I was not very good at doing it, has laid the groundwork for me being in this field. And then I've had such a quest in my life to understand, why can't I just think my way out of some stuff? Why can't I just get over somebody cutting me off? Why does it bother me so much when someone's rude or negative to me? It's just in how we're all wired. But a lot of people are just better at brushing that stuff off. But guess what? When you look at their physiology, they're having the same reaction. I did an assessment on someone recently in the office a couple months ago, and they were just really good poker players. They really could show me that they weren't stressed until I hooked them up to the equipment. And there are other people like me who kind of wear their heart on their sleeves, and they're very animated, and you really know where they are. They're not a good poker player. And my idea of, that is that, yeah, there's some situations where you need to kind of have a game face and you need to be okay. But if you tell yourself you're okay all the time and you really aren't, how do you know when to kind of pull back and regroup and see where you are? And just because you look good on the outside and you're able to handle yourself doesn't mean you're not imploding or eroding your health on the inside. And that's what we do at the Center for Mind Brain Balance, is help people understand where they're starting from. And not everybody has the same ideas for that. I hope this has been educational and insightful for you enough to say, maybe there's another way to look at my health or a loved one's health and see if we might be able to help you with that. Let me leave you with one thing from Albert Einstein, my favorite quote. You've probably seen it everywhere or heard me say it on stage or in books or on videos or at the center. And that is that problems cannot be solved with the mindset that created them. I absolutely love that quote because we have to get in front of the problem if we want to have a solution. We can't keep going at it with the limited knowledge and awareness we have. We need to have something outside of it so we can see it in a different lens and hopefully have some relief. I'm Kyle Ferroli, and I'd like to help you make your life or loved ones healthier, happier, and more productive. Thanks.